Welcome to a little tutorial on how to draw a flat pack chair in Fusion. There's some other Fusion tutorials on my YouTube channel, but this one will be focusing on how to do assembly and get that chair drawn, so that, and then we might make a second video that will help teach you how to generate the orthographic drawing so it's ready for the laser cutter. Before we start, I thought I'd just remind you that there's some really important points we need to remember when we're using Fusion. We really need to remember that this is not like a normal drawing in like AutoCAD or when you're drawing by hand. The dimensions drive the drawing. So you draw things roughly, and then you put dimensions and constraints on them, and then they constrain things, they dimension things, and they change the way things, the shape, the size of the shape. Work planes are really important. We can make modifications either in our sketches or in our 3D after we have 3D models, but it's always important to think before you start, and to keep watching the work tree on the left hand side, and to keep your drawing organized and put in naming conventions, etc. Okay, so I'm going to try and quickly draw a chair similar to this one here that I've got sort of half made up, but it's an initial sketch. I want to change some things on it, so I'm going to change the design a little and angle the sides in, and also change the shape of the top a little bit. Up here I want to bring that down higher on the sides and lower in the middle to make it more comfortable. The other thing I just want to say is that I probably will skip sections. If there's a repetitive point during this tutorial, I'll probably do it once, and then you might skip over several parts and see me putting things together, but I won't. I'll try and keep the thing short. Okay, so one of the things we need to really remember when we start is, and you can see here, this is in regard to the keeping organized, these components here were made by changing bodies, and this is the tree, this is the work tree on the side I'm circling here. And these components here were made after I made bodies, and then I converted that body into a component. If you're going to do an assembly, it's really important that you actually probably start with a component, because a component, when you start with a component, it keeps all of the parametric constraints and dimensions and modifications within it. And if you make a copy of it, all of those things come with it. If you don't do it that way, and you just copy bodies, then you lose the history of the drawing. And the power of 3D parametric drawing, the power of Fusion, Inventor, Revit, all these products, is in the fact that you can go back to a quarter of the way through your drawing, and you can edit parts. So it's important here that you make sure you start a component, and then you can see there I've actually labeled chair top. So if you label things, then this tree becomes a really valuable exercise for you. So here's when you're creating a part, instead of just creating a normal new sketch, if you create a component, then that will bring everything with it when you copy. Okay, so we'll get started. We'll come up here and we'll start a new design. Then we'll come to create, and we'll create a new component, because we know we want to make several parts. Okay, so we'll click create component, and we'll come over here, we'll change the name to chair side, and we'll click OK, and then it will appear over here in our document tree. Now you can see there's nothing going on in here just yet, which is really important concept, so just watch that now as we go. So what we'll do next is we'll activate that component, and then we'll click create a sketch. And now we have to choose which plane we're going to work on. Because it's a side, I'm going to work on a vertical plane, so I'm going to click on there. It will then spin around in 3D until I'm in a vertical plane, and then I can go ahead and start drawing. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in and out here a bit by moving my mouse up and down, and I'd really recommend you use a mouse when you're drawing rather than the trackpad. It just saves you a lot of time and effort, and a lot more accurate. So we'll go up here and we'll do a rectangle, and the first sketch, I'm always inclined, this from my Inventor days, to start from the origin, because that's just, I know where I am in 3D space. So I've just drawn a rectangle here, then I come up to this sketch dimension, and I'll put a dimension on there, and this is where I'm talking about the dimensions driving the drawing. I'm going to make this thing 280 high. And you can see I've zoomed out of my space then, and then I'm going to put another sketch dimension down the bottom here, and I'm going to make it 270 wide, because I want a fairly angled chair. The next thing I'm going to do is to draw a line, and I'm not going to worry too much. Remember I told you just work roughly. I'm going to draw 2 lines down from here to here. Then I'm going to dimension from this point to this point, and then I'll type in there 50, and then I will dimension from this point to this point. Hang on, I'll dimension from this point to this point, 50. If it doesn't come up, double click on it, 50, and hit enter. Now we're going to lose those dimensions in a minute as I go, but that will do for the moment. The next thing I'm going to do, and I've got to make choices here, whether I extrude this shape now, delete the parts around it, like I can extrude that shape there, and I can bring it up, and then I can play around and do another sketch. I might actually do an offset right now, and so I'll grab this line here, and I'll drag it down there, and I'll type in 50. I'll do the same thing on this side. I've got to click offset though again. Okay, I'll drag that in there, I'll type in 50 again, and then click offset. The last one I'll do, I've gone outside there, haven't I? So, did you see my mistake there? So I need to double click on that, sorry. I'll come back, hang on, I'll pause. Okay, I came back in here, I double click on the actual offset dimension there, and this one, because I'm dragging it in, it's going to be minus 50, I think. That'll take it back inside. Okay, so remember in CAD, you can go minus and you can go positive. So then we've got the toolbars down the bottom here, so we can pan that down a bit. I'm going to do one more offset before I'm finished, and it's going to be this one, and I'm going to drag it down here. And I'm going to make it this time, I want it to be decent and strong at the top, so I'm going to make it 100 there. And hit enter and finished. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and trim this up a bit so that I've got my chair parts in here. I'll actually cut these outside ones as well. I'm going to delete all of that. Now here's a mistake, so let's go back, we'll undo that, and we'll get rid of some parts. And okay, I've got to make sure I'm on modify scissors there, the trim command, and then I can trim all these things out the way. I'll actually cut that out the way so it's ready to go as well. Okay, now I can whip myself over into some sort of 3D space, okay, so I can see which way I'm going to extrude, and then I'll go finish sketch. We've always got to finish the sketch, and then I click finish sketch, and then I'm going to right click on that, do a press pull, and I'm going to drag my thing this way, and I'm going to type in, oh, it's negative, so I'm going to go -9 because I know I want to make this out of 9mm plywood. Okay, then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start using my 3D tools. I could have done some fillets around in here before, but in Fusion, it's actually a good idea to do them later. So in here, I'm going to pick the fillet command. I'm going to pick the edge that I want to fillet, and I'm going to type in there. I'm going to make them pretty big, so a 20mm fillet, and I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to make it do it. Okay, so sometimes you need to rotate around so you can see these edges. So I'm going to click back on fillet again. I'm going to click on that edge carefully. It doesn't remember, which is a pain, but I'll do that again. In Inventor, I think it used to remember. Pays to move things around before you do this, so I've moved this around now so I can catch most of these in one go. I've got to keep coming back here, click on those edges, typing in 20, and I can fillet it. Now, another thing that you can do is you can pick the feature and then you can click on fillet, or if I right click on that and go repeat fillet, or actually I can right click anyway, but I click repeat fillet, then I can do it that way. Or I can pick that one, hold down my shift button and pick this one, and then right click and go repeat fillet, and then I get to do 2 fillets at once. Okay, so there's most of my first part. I've got to put some slots in the top now, and then I can copy it, and I can see over here I've got now I've got some bodies in here underneath my component, and that's what I was mentioning at the start. It's really important the way you start this, and you have to think before you start.